because it's been a question that's gone on here and was a question our whole election. You still have human rights. You still have basic human rights. And I don't want that taken away from anyone. And it's not a case of what you want to pretend to be or identify as, and you can still do that. We don't care. What you are or what you were born as biologically means something. And maybe that's what we need the U.S. Supreme Court to do. Maybe we need the U.S. Supreme Court to make a ruling on what the definition of a woman is. Mr. Make America Healthy Again himself was in the news. And you've probably saw headlines about this. It's a huge difference. We went from 1 in 1,000 kids have autism to 1 in 30. Let's do the Greg Doucette reel, because I'm just over this dude, honestly. This dude is annoying the shit out of me recently, and I used to really like some of his content. This doesn't end well unless it ends. Can't just report the fucking obvious. It's just a motherfucking jump. Just go. Let's fucking go. This is the Outlaw Apostle Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Neff. I'm the fucking guy. And good morning to the other fucking guy. Chase, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. Just another early morning.
Just another early morning, man.
Hell yeah.
We'll get to it. We'll get her done. Then enjoy ourselves a little Easter.
Yeah.
You know what we decided to do? We don't even know if they're having one, but a special one. But I think they would kind of be busy. Remember how we celebrate Thanksgiving with the Indians?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to celebrate Easter with the Indians. Is what we decided.
Okay.
We're going to go out to the Weekapo Casino and buffet. You'd think they would have an Easter buffet and have some ham and shit, right? Maybe.
Sure. Yeah.
Seems like an idea, right?
I mean, to bring the people in, I don't see why they wouldn't.
Yeah, that's the thing. So, yeah, that's what we decided we're gonna do. We're gonna go work out first, and that way maybe miss a little bit of the crowd,
Mhm.
you know, and then 1 to 2 o'clock. Go fit that in, get on the bike, and we've been riding the bike quite a bit. We rode all day yesterday. We put on 200 miles. 200 miles, pretty good ride. We ended up in Payson after we did the car show in Fountain Hills, and it's so funny because the area, when I've gone to car shows in the past, most of the time, it's the 40s, the 50s, the hot rods, the 60s, the 70s. And there was like one really cool Chevelle that probably was like a 72 to 74 Chevelle. I didn't really look at the date, but that for me was the coolest car. But they had a shit ton of Lamborghinis, Ferraris. And when I mean a shit ton, there was a lot. You don't see that many in one place unless you're in Miami. There was a lot of them, and it's just the area, Scottsdale, Fountain Hills. The older ones were kind of neat to see, 60s or 70s of the Lamborghinis and the shape they were in and stuff. But we had a nice time. Had a nice time. Speaking of nice times, so I think I shared with you that I fucked up buying tickets. So I bought tickets for the Alabama concert because Alabama is the greatest country band in history. And I've never seen them. So they were kind of on my bucket list. When a handful of bands that I haven't seen that you still have a chance to see. Now, I know they're older and you got to be a little careful about that. And I'm just going to be honest about the whole show and everything when we talked today, because it reminded me a little bit about Bob Seger. I had a chance to see Bob Seger when I was really young, and my parents made me choose between two concerts, and I chose a different concert, and it wasn't that one. But Bob Seger's like my favorite all time, rock and roll singer, all time. And so it wasn't until much later that I got to see Bob Seger, and I saw him a few years in a row, like 2 or 3 times maybe. But it was getting to the point, when I first saw him, it was still it was still good, and he put on a good show. But it was at the end of his career. And then, just like football players, sometimes they stay too long. You know, in that last season, they fell off a cliff and it ain't the same, kind of like that. Well, there was a point, the last show, and I think he toured a few years after I last saw Bob Seger, but I would never go back because I didn't want to remember Bob Seger that way. That when he would get to a certain note or singing a song and a word, and he couldn't carry it out as long as he used to because you're old, you just don't have you just can't take that deeper breath. You ain't got that kind of lung capacity, right? He would do this fist pump, kind of thing. Man, that was it, man. I'm good. I've seen Bob Seger. I love Bob Seger. I have good memories. That particular, the first show that I got to see him is in my top 5 all time of concerts. It was good. And this, there were a lot of people like me at this show. So probably it had to be pushing close to 20,000 people because you have a section of seats that you can't use, but then you got the whole floor covered, right? So I'm going at the Phoenix Arena, which was Footprint Center. You're talking probably about 20,000 people. And probably a fair majority of us probably ain't seen him. And so I did want to see him. I also then accidentally, not even thinking, because I got these tickets a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, I booked this more romantic show where it's this candlelight thing at the zoo, and it's called Fever that they put on, and they do a bunch of these where they'll bring somebody in for so many dates in a row at different locations, and it's all these candles, and then it's like an instrumental thing. It might be 1, it might be 3, big cellos, violins, whatever. And then sometimes, doing various kinds of music. And this one seemed really cool. They were playing Queen. Well, I couldn't go because it's the same night as Alabama. Wasn't able to get, didn't really think about trying to get rid of the tickets. And I gave them to my friend Marlon. And they had an amazing time. He kept going, "Oh, it's so great. It was wonderful. Thank you so much." Marlon got to see a good show. Now, instead of, I've maybe a little set this up, but I want to show you, this is a little bit of video that I took at the concert, and I want to see, maybe I haven't really looked at it too hard, but I know how I felt at the show. I want to kind of get your reaction to just, it doesn't, I know you're younger and, Alabama, but just your reaction to their demeanor and actions, and this is going on during the show. So I got a couple of videos here. Go ahead and play this first one, and that's Randy Owens there in the middle. He turns and walks away. Now look more at the body. And the hand movement. He's coming back. That's his cousin, is the guitar player. 2 of the 3 original members are still there. Moves a little forward there. And the hand movement again. Now he's walking back off a second. go. I think that's pretty good. Let's shoot the other one real quick. Little finger pointer there.
Cousin, you know we know some ballads too, you know. Time out, blue team. I'm usually in bed by this time in Alabama. Y'all have to forgive me. I'm still awake. I'm hanging in there with you.
And he did hang in there.
Yeah, a love song.
All right. So, just off the top of your head, man, what impression did you get? Did it remind you of anything or anybody?
The only thing I can think of is he probably has some really uncomfortable boots on right now. The way he walks.
Probably for him, you know, because he was the only one that wore boots.
Yeah.
Of the old guys.
The other. And they're the old school ones too, where they're like heel boots too, so they're a little bit more uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, but I don't think that's why he was shuffling. And if you look at how he like slowly walked and then the little hand raise and the finger pointer, both Dawn and I, before we said something to each other, the first thing that came into our mind, Biden. It reminded me of the Biden shuffle and walking across the stage or walking away. Like it just, and it wasn't just us. It was the people around us. Because I did this little thing, like, because it didn't really show it in this video one time when he was like this. I swear to God, I'm probably going too fast. It was almost sad, honestly. You know what I'm saying? It was sad. Like from a voice perspective, you could tell it's not that powerful, obviously. And so maybe that was a 6 or a 7 compared to the voice you could almost get away with. But like, this has to be these guys' last tour. They should not be touring anymore. Like they're done, you know? I mean, it was not good. Too bad I didn't get a little video of the fiddle player. She was badass. Like, she got the place excited. I mean, at the beginning, I think everybody was stunned. And they even made like a comment, how, you know, y'all okay? Like, because like the audience reaction was more mute. And they didn't want to be. You know what I mean? They wanted, as an audience, we wanted it to be. We wanted to support the band. But it's like at a certain point, because he's 75, you know, and Biden was, 83? Like, but he looked more 83 than 75. And even his cousin had better movement than he did, you know. And it's like, wow. It was, and just the way they took breaks and sat down and like, good Lord. Like this, and then to top it off, is just how my whole week has been. Just like me doing dumb shit. I told you about the baseball game, right?
Yeah.
About buying the wrong tickets or buying it for the wrong city.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I get Dawn and I a shirt for Alabama, and I got a hat too. And I see this one shirt's $5 less. The shirts weren't a lot. They were $35, $40, which isn't a lot anymore for a concert. They can be more. And I just like the front of one particular of the two shirts that I saw. I liked the one a little bit more than the other. It had a semi-truck on there and, you know, 18-wheeler, big song of theirs, that kind of thing. So I get that shirt and I don't, you know, they're hanging back in the, you know, I don't know, what, 25, 30 feet away, 25 feet away? And I can't see shit. And I didn't look at it when he brought it up, you know, before I bought it. I didn't hold it up, size it up. I know what size I wear, you know, just one thing. So I didn't look at that shirt till I got home. And I'm looking at the back of the shirt because it listed the cities like a true concert shirt like it normally does, right? I can't find Phoenix on there. And I'm like, how am I missing this? Where the fuck is Phoenix? I'm looking again. It was a 2024 concert shirt.
You're just getting rid of.
They sold me a 2024, and it should have been on the sign or something. You know what I mean? 2024, you know, $5 off, or I don't know, whatever you want to say. You should have told me. I might have still bought it anyways, but it's like, really? There's no Phoenix on there where I saw him at. Like, and I just shook my head because that's kind of how my week was, not a terrible week, but just things were a little off with the shit that I've done. It's kind of funny, but yeah, it was definitely on the sad side. And the thing is that fiddle player, she could sing too. And so Pam Tillis was the opener. And Pam Tillis, if you're not familiar with her, her father was a big time country star. And she's been in the music business like 30 years now too. So she's not young. And her voice, she was okay. But if you were like doing American Idol and you heard her sing, and then you heard this fiddle player sing, dude, the difference was 6 and 10. Now Pam Tillis was never so big that I don't believe that she was like ever like a headliner, unless the only way she's being a headliner is if she's at a county fair. Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So but she did open for other bands, and if there's 3 bands, she was probably the middle one, at some point. Because she did have a few hits, but just going by pure voice, she could sing, like belt it out and hang on to tunes like you hear the like strong women do in country music or pop music, how they can, the best singers. And she just was really, really good. And that just makes you wonder, how is it that some people make it? And I'm not saying, just because her dad was in country music, I don't know how much role that really plays into it, but you just wonder then, how can somebody with this good a voice not be signed herself and be being recorded and putting out songs and buying other people's songs and singing them? You know what I mean? Like, she just like, it's like the difference is this one's really good. This one's just okay. And like, just I don't think you have to be an expert. You know what sounds good, right?
Yeah, the music industry is very corrupt, though. So it's you definitely have a lot of family members or close friends that get more opportunities than other people.
I'm sure that's true. But at some point, you figure talent wins at some point.
Not in the music industry.
Apparently not, like you just wonder, why is she not at least opening somewhere? Now, I get it, like she's not 20 to 30, she's probably was in her late 30s, early 40s, but I don't know, it's not like you can't be good at something later in life. And, I imagine if she didn't just become a good singer and have a good voice, and I don't even know what her name was, but she was really, really good. And it just some of my thoughts in my head, just shit that was going on. And that was our end of the week and weekend. You're watching the Outlaw Apostle Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Neff. I'm the fucking guy. Do me a favor, will you? Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, support us, share the show. Much love. God bless. I'm the fucking guy. All right, so let's get into the stuff. This we're going to put this under our MAHA stuff, Make America Healthy Again. And let's start with the UK, because I think this is I was surprised to see this, honestly. So this is from the BBC, because we wanted it to be from a more of a liberal reporting perspective, because it's been a question that's gone on here and was a question our whole election. And it's a question that hasn't been answered by Democrats in being unable, when they've been asked. I mean, literally, they've been asked as they're walking down the hall to a meeting or from their office or to their office. A reporter will literally ask a congressman, a representative or senator, hey, what's the definition of a woman? And they'll get some smart ass comeback, but they won't get an answer. Well, we know, or maybe you're not following it, but the UK over the last few years has become just a terrible place for freedom of speech. And maybe you've heard when Vice President Vance made some comments and talked about how people are being prosecuted for simple things and jailed for simple things they post on social media that they deem to be not nice. And I've read some of the things and just been in total shock. Really, that? I mean, I'd hope we would never tolerate that here, but who knows? And we do follow along sometimes. So because they've been enforcing this so much, it really made me think, like, really? I was really surprised that the UK Supreme Court unanimously ruled that a woman is defined by biological sex under equalities law. And it's not a case of what you want to pretend to be or identify as, and you could still do that. We don't care. But for the certain purposes of law, or we also mean in sports, what you are or what you were born as biologically means something. And there is no way to change that. You're going to have the chromosomes that you had, whether you chop your dick off or not. The chromosomes don't change. Your body chemistry doesn't change in that way anyways. It's going to produce, it's not going to produce testosterone like it did, but still, you are what you were born as. And so I was really surprised to see this, and haven't seen a lot of it picked up in mainstream news here because it doesn't fit our current narrative or what they want to talk about here. It says it marks the culmination of long-running legal battle, which could have major implications for how sex-based rights apply across Scotland, England, and Wales. The court sided with Campaign Group for Women Scotland, which brought a case against the Scottish government, arguing that sex-based protection should only apply to people that are born female. Judge Lord Hodge said, ruling that the ruling should not be seen as a triumph of one side over the other, and stressed that the law still gives protection against discrimination to transgender people. And I think what is meant by that, and that I'm okay with, is if you identify as transgender, you still have human rights. You still have basic human rights. And I don't want that taken away from anyone. But you don't get special rights above everybody else. That's the thing. And you don't get rights that are attributed to women when you're biologically not a woman, which makes complete sense. And I think that a lot of people, at least on the conservative side, some are assholes, just like on the Democrat side, but I think most of the Republicans feel like, or conservatives feel like I do. I'm not transphobic because I don't fucking give a shit. Oh yeah, somebody accused I posted that one little short that we had of me and Mo Green talking about this, and it was, that's transphobic. No, it's not. There's no hate. There's just the belief, and a belief founded in fact, that men who are pretending to be women should not play in women's sports, especially when you get to the level of teens or as an adult or younger adult. And someone who, I think the one runner that was highlighted recently, maybe it was the Oregon story we talked about, where I think that kid as a sophomore. He couldn't even make the boys' JV team.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
But then he actually won the race against the girls. Not just, he wasn't the best girl on his team. He was the best of the girls in a particular race that was run, against other schools. I mean, but you're not good, which was the point that Mo was trying to make. And it's not transphobic. It's not taking away rights. And that's what we hear about. Trump's trying to take away people's rights. We're not taking away any rights. You have certain human rights, but you can't infringe on the rights of others. That's always been the case of how you look at something. Your right ends where mine begins. You can't push that on women. Women need protected too. It's not this whole thing about a special class. No offense, you're not fucking special. You're no more special than anybody else. That's where the equality truly is not in outcomes or various things, but in application of the law is where it's supposed to be equal. Where we talk about that there's a two-tiered system, and there shouldn't be. It should be equality of all. I'm not someone who thinks that, somebody should be discriminated against, like say for housing, because they like to put on a dress. You have a right to live and to life, and that's not hurting anybody. That's not taking the right of somebody else away or somebody else's ability. So that's where there's no conflict, and absolutely you have that right, just like somebody else would based on the color of their skin. It doesn't matter what the color of your skin is. That your housing should not be determined by that. It's determined by economics. Can you afford it? Can you pay the bill? Are you a good person? You're gonna not destroy the place, something like that. But I was very surprised to see this, because this is something that it's not going away. That maybe we thought it was a little bit going to go away after the election, and it's not, and it's not going to go away anytime soon, because several states, Trump had the executive order to try to protect women under Title IX and women's sports. And there's several states, Illinois is one, Maine is one, that have been pushing back, and there's going to be court cases where they're just, want to continue to allow men to participate in women's sports. So they're keeping it in the news, if that makes sense. Something that most people agree on, and not just by a little bit of a majority, by a supermajority. A supermajority is usually over 60% or 2/3. So a supermajority of Americans believes that women should be protected from having to compete against men in women's sports. And it's, a lot of times what's brought up is safety. And safety is an issue in some cases. Like the volleyball player that experienced damage when a volleyball was, spiked into her head and caused damage. And yeah, that isn't the only thing. Even if it's a sport where safety is not an issue, it's still not the same. It's about women being allowed the opportunity to compete against other women, the same as men have the opportunity to compete. If it'd be different if men or women on their own, if there was a third category, and not just for transgender people like Mo suggested, that could be. But I mean, co-ed. I mean, there are. So I didn't play soccer. I coached soccer and learned a lot about soccer, and was good enough to coach. But I tried to play a little bit, against. I played in adult leagues that most of the people were between 20 and 30. Not a great idea. 40 and over was better. And I did that as well. And there would be men's leagues, but there would also be co-ed leagues. You might be in a dart league at the local bar that's just a men's league, but there might be a co-ed league, or like playing pool. But see, I'm just saying that should be a choice. If you want to compete against the opposite sex, it should just be a choice that's offered. You have the men's league, you have the women's league, and you have a co-ed league. And usually the co-ed league is a little less serious. It just typically seems that way. At least it has been in my judgment that I love sports and activities of all kinds. But that's all we're talking about here, is it should be a choice. And nobody wants to take away the human rights. And I would defend, and I do all the time. People don't know. Somebody's calling me transphobic when I've told you, and it happened again this past week, that I'm in a fitness group, and I've explained that there's somebody in the fitness group that takes what I would consider tasteful pictures. It's not provocative, other than it's not in the norm that, this person put on a female singlet type of an outfit, gym outfit. Okay. And this guy, I don't know if he's gay. He doesn't say I'm gay. He doesn't put those things, but he posts pictures of himself in the gym, and he talks about fitness things. He's not talking about transgender issues or pushing that or anything, or it's not anything like that. And people get unhinged about that. And obviously, a number of those people like that are conservative. And I have to slap, don't be an asshole. Don't be an asshole. I mean, you've mentioned it, where there seems to be a little bit where some people feel like it's okay to say or do things right now. And no, it's not okay. It's not okay to say certain things to any particular ethnic group. Now, you don't have permission for that because Trump is president. That's not what MAGA is about. And so maybe, some racists identify with America first. Well, that's a different topic altogether. But just because somebody identifies with it, it's no different than talking about the flag, and that racists and the KKK. You know how, well, I'll give you an example. So that Alabama concert shirt I bought, right? In the back has this orange X, and it kind of reminds you of the Confederate flag a little bit. It gives off that Confederate flag vibe, but there's no stars on it, and it's red and not blue. But it's like it was put on there to convey Southern heritage, but was modified so that people wouldn't be offended. Now, maybe I'm reading way too much into it, okay? But if you don't think that kind of shit happens now, or people do, they do. They do. Because they don't want to be, not everybody wants to be confrontational or that, but they want to express their conservative heritage. And that's how I always viewed the Confederate flag. I never viewed it as, a racist symbol that people turned it into. And if you do any type of research at all, you'll find that, especially in the South, and, the original KKK was first formed in a town in Tennessee. So, not the deep South, but the South. And that the flag that if you pull up just random pictures, if you just pull up random pictures, why don't we do that just as an exercise? Pull up random pictures of, just put KKK and just put the word flag, not what type of flag. KKK and the flag. I'm curious to see what we see. And then just go to images. Now, you do see the Confederate flag there, and I'm actually a little bit surprised on this. I think this is tilted a little bit, and you can slam me for that all you want, but go back in and put American flag. And the American flag. Now, if you go down and you see the old black and white pictures, you don't see two flags there, do you? You don't see two flags there in any of those. You only see the American flag. Now, just because they took the flag, does that make that flag racist? So my hood, I don't want to get into the whole flag debate, but you see the American flag was used a lot and is used a lot by white supremacists and KKK groups. See, every time you're pulling up those, especially the older black and whites, you see the American flag a lot. And that's how it was. So just something I thought was interesting. And when I talk about these things, and sometimes I'm talking about them in a way that I'm just kind of taking you through my thought process and how I pull up information or take in information to come up with the best conclusion in my head that I can. And I'm always willing to add additional information into that folder, so to speak. And sometimes it may change my mind for one thing or another. But the whole point was, like, I am absolutely for defending people. And just like I said, I defend this guy in this group, and I'm as MAGA as they get. But that doesn't mean that just because I don't want men who identify as women to play in women's sports, and just because I don't want those same people in my daughter's bathroom or things like that, or locker room and things like that, that doesn't mean I think they should be treated like shit, or that they don't have rights, or they're not, just people with feelings and, wanting to make the best of their lives or whatever. If mental illness, some people say, some not, whatever. The other part is it's not my business. It's not my business. It's not my business until you make it my business. Okay? You want to live your life how you want, you do that. Again, until you walk into the locker room with my daughter and think you're going to whip your dick out or take a shower, in the women's locker room. That's where I draw the line. I just draw on the line that you can't do that. That's all. I'm not drawing the line that you can't pretend to be whatever. If that's your thing, and some people don't like that we phrase it that way and talk about it pretending. Well, you weren't born that fucking way. All right, let's at least acknowledge that that's not a thing. So, yeah, I'm for just be a decent human being. And these stupid people in that Facebook group, anyways, that want to act like idiots towards people, just scroll, man. That's it. That's one of those places, especially, that there's no reason for you to comment. Just to be an asshole. None at all. And I used to like delete them a little bit, but now I'm more publicly shaming people that do that. I'm leaving some of those posts up so that people in the group, because there's over 300,000 people in this group, that you get the idea that me as a moderator, yeah, that's not going to fly. Don't do that. That this is your warning. Instead of me giving you a private warning, be at least aware of people doing it. If you want to stay in the group, or if you don't like it that I allow that guy to post those pictures, find another group. Look, there's thousands of fitness groups. Find another one. It's not hard. But that's my take on it. And at least, maybe not in the United States, and maybe that's what we need the U.S. Supreme Court to do. Maybe we need the U.S. Supreme Court to make a ruling on what the definition of a woman is. And at least they've been able to do that in the U.K., which, again, surprises me. And continuing on with our Make America Healthy Again, Mr. Make America Healthy Again himself was in the news. And if you, I'm just going to read this, and you've probably saw headlines about this, that during a speech, I think it was on Thursday, that RFK Jr. said, because he wants to find out, and I do too, I want to find out why we went from 1 in 1,000 or whatever the number was. It was like, it's a huge difference. We went from 1 in 1,000 kids have autism to 1 in 30. And I'm sorry, I personally don't believe, and there's no science that's shown me otherwise yet, as just as a general person, that it's simply a matter of they can identify it better now, which I'll acknowledge they can, but that doesn't account from going from 1 in 1,000 to now 1 in 30. I mean, it's off the charts. I mean, when I was a kid, 57, you may have known of someone who was autistic, or a family that had an autistic family member. But that was, I grew up in a town of 2,200, right? That was one family in that whole town. Maybe two, but I'm pretty sure in our case, it was like one in Genoa. Now it's somebody on your fucking street, and it's every fucking street. 1 in 30? And instead of being mad still about whatever about vaccines, and it's not just a single vaccine in isolation anyways, it's just the accumulation that you and I went through. That, what was it, like years ago when I was a kid, we got like 8 vaccines or something as kids, and now it's 30. And these studies aren't done based on this accumulation of that, plus all the other crap that's going on in our foods. And some people do believe that it's the accumulation of all of these different things together, that just one of these things, like you can have a little bit of poison and it not be bad for you. True story. There's a certain amount that's okay, that we know that by science, that it's okay. But at a certain point, that poison becomes dangerous to you and to your health. So yeah, this one thing by itself isn't terrible, but when you add the pesticides to the environment and the water and the air and our soil, and then that goes into our food, and then all of these other drugs that used to. You can't say that vaccines are perfect, because there was a time when they had mercury in them and they don't now. And there's a reason they don't put that in there now, right? They found it not to be good. Well, it's like, I'm just saying, it's an accumulation of all these things. And there are people that thought, it's vaccine related. You can't even suggest that anymore. Okay. But if that's the case, then what's causing it? And I think that's still a conversation we should have. It's no different than, why would there be an increase in certain parts of the country, maybe, for certain cancers? Well, because maybe there was a spill or a chemical spill in that community at one time that caused a lot of damage to the water supply and the land, or other things like that. That's things that we study. So it's not just autism, it's the fact of studying anything and trying to find what's the root cause, what's causing it, and what's the increase. And that's what he was bringing up the other day, is that he wants to get to the bottom of. Okay, so it's not vaccines causing it. What is? And for people to get upset about that is crazy to me. It's a conversation we need to have. Now, if you looked at that, the wording there, and just pop it up just one more time, because it looks bad. If you take this quote and you just look at this, that he said this, because I fact checked it. I didn't watch the whole press conference yet, but I've did clip into it, that people with autism will never pay taxes, hold a job, or go on a date. If you take that, just that singular line there, that sounds bad. I think anyone would agree that sounds bad, right? That probably wasn't a smart thing to say. So the question is, did he really say it? Yes, he really said it. But here's the thing. If you go to, did I send you my little thing? I didn't send it to you. Of this not being in context. All right, I have it on my phone. Let's see. Okay. So here's the truth. If you actually go and watch the whole video, that him saying that autistic kids will never have jobs, never pay taxes, never go on dates, that is so misleading. That this is what, remember what they did to President Trump when President Trump said there was good people on both sides of the debate, when he was referring to the debate of, like statues and stuff at the time we were talking about. Trump was not referring to the fact, he wasn't saying that white supremacists were good people. That's not what he said. That was not the context of it. And you just had to look at a few more sentences to kind of figure it out. Because in this case, they're doing the same thing to RFK now. And you had a bunch of mainstream media do that to him. And it's 100% it's wrong. It's just wrong. Because this is super misleading and out of context. Because moments before he made this statement, he was specifically referring to 25% of the cases that are classified as severe. Now, what does that mean when it's classified as severe? And again, he's just speaking truth here. He's just putting it out there. And we have to be able to talk and have these conversations, but because there's such hatred now for Trump and anything associated with Trump, it's immediately attack and twist things to try to make somebody look bad. So what's severe? Children who are nonverbal, meaning they can't talk or spread sentences and can't communicate. Now, Dawn and I are in a group at church, an adult group, where we get together with a few other couples twice a month. That's how often our group gets together. And they have a severely autistic child. And I believe, I could be wrong, I'd have to ask him, he's either teen age or adult age, okay? But he's nonverbal. Like, he can make some sounds, but he's not forming sentences to tell you what he wants. He's communicating in other ways the best he can. And not toilet trained or unable to care for themselves. And it's their life is caring for their autistic family member, for their child. And because they're always your children, no matter what age. So I'm just going to use that word, even though he's not, like, when I'm saying child, I don't mean child age as a young person. Because again, I think he's teen age or adult age. But, and I don't believe, I haven't asked, I don't know that there's, at least now, I don't think there's like hope that there's going to be some improvement, that he's going to be able to communicate 5 years from now, or as he gets older, that part's going to get better, And so the case is, he's not going to have a job. He can't. He physically is unable to do so. And do people with autism go on dates and have jobs? Yes, absolutely, every day. But not people that have severe autism, like in this case. That doesn't happen. They don't have that kind of same emotional responses to other people. He's not going out, the people he comes in contact with are probably medical people. This is just off the top of my head, medical people, his parents, other family members, and friends of the family members who come to the house mostly, or if they take him out, anybody they come in contact with, in public as an acquaintance or somebody saying hi or whatever. But he doesn't have a social life where, people are going to maybe date someone they meet at the gym. People are going to date someone that, well, you used to be allowed to, that you meet at work, those kinds of places. Because you got to come in contact with people somehow. And it's not like he's got a Facebook account. He's not Facebook dating. All right. So what RFK said is not disrespectful at all, nor was it ever meant to be. And to imply that it was disrespectful and to take somebody out of context that bad shows what a piece of shit these people are that are promoting this and saying that he said this in this way when he didn't say that at all. You can only be so careful about what you say. And when somebody takes you this out of context, and that can be done to anyone, but news organizations, I think, have some obligation to not do that, right? Because I was taught as a kid, what was the news people supposed to do? Who, what, when, and where? Those were the questions you were supposed to answer. Who did it? What happened? When did it happen? Where did it happen? You might throw, in how, but you're just asking, what's the answer? How it happened with a gun, how it happened with a knife, where it happened in someone's home. Just answering the simple basic question that there's no argument about. That like factual shit. And what he wants to do is find an answer for people. Like, you don't want an answer? Should this be if we could improve things, if we could make some changes so that like I said, it's like 1 out of 30 now is what the number is. If we could change that it's 1 out of 100, 1 out of 250, 1 out of 500, are people opposed to that? That maybe we make a lifestyle change, maybe we make a food change, the whole process. So if we make, maybe it's a drug, maybe not. But the answer can't always be drugs. That's not how we got here. So obviously, within the context that I just provided, his remarks were not about all autistic children. He was specifically talking about children who were classified as having severe autism. And so to claim otherwise, which these people did, either means you're just unaware of the context because you just commented based on the post you see on Facebook, like that shitty post that we just gave you, or you're deliberately, the context of it, and you are deliberately, because once I show you the context, you shouldn't have an issue at all. And yeah, you pulled it up yourself. Good job. You look 26.7%. So we like to, it's when you're communicating with people, you like round, easy numbers, right? So you said 25%. Yeah. The majority are not in this severe category. But still, 26.7% is a lot. It's not the 75% that isn't, but unbelievable. It really is that they would do this, but it's not surprising anymore. But you have to take this stuff and you should question if you're, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. You have an obligation to yourself to know and understand this shit and to question shit. I see stuff daily that I look up and verify that I'm like, that sounds a little crazy to me. That doesn't sound right. That doesn't seem so good. That I'm not sure. That number seems a little off. And so I will go and check something. But most of the time, a good percentage of people don't. They see something and it either aligns with their current thought process or it doesn't, and they comment based on that. They're not checking themselves. And you need to check yourself. You have a responsibility too, that before you comment on something like that, to ask a simple question, just like I did. And I'm an RFK supporter. So I didn't just go with, no, he didn't say it. So the first thing, I was surprised that it said that he did say it when I did my research. And then I dug deeper. Well, in what context did he say it? And that's where I found that there's, look at that. What do you have? 1 in 31. But it used to be much, much lower. Look that up. What was the number? How many people were diagnosed with, or, one out of how many? Yeah, back in 1950 or whatever. .01% to 0.05%. Wow. That's so much lower. Yeah, because of increased diagnosis. And I understand that being able to identify it definitely has changed, and they're better at that. However, I don't think it accounts for the whole amount. There's just no way. There's other factors going on. And because I don't want to say something that I'm just going to leave that alone. Anyways. Five years old diagnosis. That's pretty interesting stuff. Was that from? Is this from a site on Autism Speaks? Oh, Autism Speaks. Okay. So again, this is. I'm not just doing this because I do a podcast. I've always done this in my daily life, so I can understand it. It doesn't, and I don't think you have to be an expert at everything, but you should. Things that you do care about, it's good to know or understand, or at least have a basic understanding of different things and how different things work. So you can have at least a well thought out opinion on something. And if you don't, that's okay too. But things I don't have, a real well thought out opinion on, I'm not sharing my thoughts on it. So let's do one. Let's finish up with this other one. I wanted to get to, I'm going to keep it really short. Vitamin D. Okay, this is really short on vitamin D because I did want to mention it. They just found that vitamin D lowers the risk of colorectal cancer. And all I want to say about that simply is, yes, I am a representative. I am a promoter of a supplement company, and I like vitamins. And I get hammered on that from time to time, and I don't care. Personally, I believe in taking vitamins for myself because I know with our current food supply, even if I eat just whole foods, right, that tomato that I'm eating today does not have the same nutritional value as a tomato did in 1950. It's much lower. It's just not the same anymore. I don't care if it's organic. It doesn't matter because the rain isn't organic, okay? We have chemicals. Well, there's chemicals. Everything has chemicals. But there's things in the rain that aren't good. I do believe that there is pollution. I am a believer in, even as a conservative, of polluting less. You know, I want the best land we can have. I want the best water and air that we can have. And certainly damage has been done both naturally and by man. So I'm just saying that to say I'm personally, I'm good with supplementing vitamins. Now, vitamin D, you can get that free. And especially if you live in a place like I do in Arizona, where we have over 300 days of sunshine, if you spend 20 minutes, I think that's what the number is, like 20 minutes a day, you will get the amount of vitamin D you need from the sun if you're outside. But especially during the winter, you don't. And if you remember, nobody really wanted to talk about it during COVID, but vitamin D and having enough vitamin D was very important in fighting COVID. So that's it, just for so many health things. If I had to pick one vitamin that was really super important, now you can supplement if you need to, because like when I lived in Ohio, during the winter months, it was gray all the time. You people, just like I did, should be supplementing. Maybe you can supplement a little less out here in Arizona, but if you're not, just because it's sunny doesn't mean people are outside. It can be really super hot, or people just not doing activities outside because of the heat. You have to determine that for yourself, whether you need to supplement or not. But even though I have some vitamin D standalone supplement, vitamin D is also in the supplements I take with the Thrive and Lavelle. And for me, that's what works. But if you want to know what vitamin maybe is one of the most important that you could take and supplement with because of all the different benefits, I know they're specifically talking about colorectal cancer and reducing the risk there. But the list of benefits of vitamin D, I don't know if there's another, maybe there is. And if you have one, share it, what you think. But I think as far as vitamins go, there's not a vitamin that has more benefits to it by supplementing or making sure you have enough of than vitamin D. So I wanted to make that real quick. And then last thing, let's do the Greg Doucette reel, because I'm just over this dude, honestly. I know I probably should save this and start with it on another podcast, but this dude is annoying the shit out of me recently. And I used to really like some of his content, but now that he seems to, I don't know if he's getting even more traction now by making comments and talking about steroids and testosterone and things, but he seems to have a greater focus on this lately. And I watch the Iced Coffee Hour sometimes. They do a pretty decent podcast, and they have Greg on talking about the negative side effects of taking steroids. It's only 28 seconds long. Let it run.
When you take steroids, you really become a different person. I dated this girl. She was a bikini competitor, and she decided to use Anavar. She put on 20 pounds of muscle. She was huge. Then comes the testosterone, the DECA, the D-ball, and all of a sudden I'm like, what's wrong with your voice? What's going on with your face? Like facial hair growth, the acne bursting through the skin, getting on a bar, squatting, and seeing blood from the acne busting. Gross. No. Like, this is just disgusting. And I'm like, you need to stop.
Okay. So many things wrong with this, and some of them may be his fault, and some of them
I started drinking cold water,
and some of them are the fault of, go back to the beginning of that. Some of them are the beginning of, I would put it on the people who put the video together for iced coffee.
The problem with steroids
because I want to get to the place where, okay, as soon as you see the picture, go really slow, the picture of Anavar that they have. It's at near the beginning.
When you take a person, I dated this girl.
He didn't date that girl. The girl he's talking about is not that girl. The girl they use in this picture is a pretty famous influencer who claims to be natural. There, leave it right there. Who claims to be natural, and maybe she is. She's a more a thicker, more muscular girl. That doesn't look like. There's a certain hardness. If you know anything about testosterone and steroids, that there's a certain look of a muscle that's just different when somebody's using than when somebody is natural and has good size muscle. Just they have it naturally. There's more of a smoothness that they have to it than this dense, hard look. And she has more of a smooth, but this video isn't about her, but they shouldn't have used her in this case. If they're going to talk about a woman on steroids, they could have actually shown, a real IFBB competitor who probably 99% is going to have used. Okay. Super, super high, because that's just the sport. You don't have to. But this Anavar is totally crap. That is not real Anavar. That's a legal bottle of shit that you can buy. And every picture they show of a drug they mention is something that you can legally buy over the counter. You cannot legally buy Anavar or D-Ball or Deca over the counter. You can't. Unless you're going to Mexico, and then good luck, getting it home. But you can't do it. You can't legally buy it. You can be prescribed to you. Okay. So, and I've used every one of these they show here. I've used, and I can't remember the company off the top of my head. It's something pharmaceutical. They actually used to make a really good ephedrine product when ephedrine became hard to get, and so you could get products that were ephedra and not the ephedrine drug. That worked. It was energy. It was like caffeine. Okay. But all of their other shit like this was garbage. But because that one product worked, I tried their other shit before I ever used real steroids or testosterone. So I'm telling you 100% that I know this shit is garbage. It's not even going to give you 1/10 of the results of what real stuff does. And it'll cost you $60 to $90 for a bottle, and you might as well just burn your fucking money. Okay. This is total fucking garbage. But so the problem I have is two things. One is his whole take on women using. And if the woman that he describes was breaking out like that and had those, dude, she wasn't taking Anavar. I've said it before. A woman taking Deca or taking, testosterone doses that are not for therapeutic purposes, as having low T, because what a woman takes as far as a real dose for low T of real testosterone cypionate is so much lower. It's night and day compared to what a man would take. Like we did the video showing that Dr. Bellman takes 200 milligrams a week and he splits it to 100 milligrams twice. Okay. A woman is going to take 1/5 to 1/10 of that. And more likely 1/10 of that number is what a woman is going to take for treatment of a woman having low T. And if a woman is experiencing the kind of muscle gain that he's talking about, and also with the side effects he's talking about, absolutely, it's at much higher doses. It's going to probably be more pushing closer to what a man would be on TRT. And maybe even more. It's the total difference there. But otherwise, that shit just doesn't happen. And I don't know why he's on this bandwagon now. I'm on a bandwagon of informing people so that they can make the best decision of what's right for them and take the risk-reward ratio and say, yeah, this is something I'm willing to do or not. But I'm over this overblowing all the fucking time because I have to deal with it with new clients then of people overblowing what the risks are. Okay. The risks, if done right, are way lower than what people are doing to their bodies when they smoke, when they drink alcohol, when they smoke weed, when they take other drugs. There is a huge difference. All right. It's not the same, but people think all that's okay because it's legal. But this, oh my God, that's so dangerous. Or that whatever the listed side effects is always going to happen. I've told you, doesn't happen. They're like any other drugs, a very small percentage, usually between 5 and 10%, experience the side effects listed on any drug bottle. It's a small number. Okay. And yes, at higher doses, you can be more likely, but it still doesn't mean you're going to. I have clients who experience some side effects even on 150 to 200 milligrams of testosterone, that they experience some kind of side effects. And then I have guys on basic cycles or even more doing 400 to 500 milligrams in a week who have zero side effects of any kind. So it's just not true. You have to find out for you, and you don't know until you take it. But this, using somebody and, putting, especially a person, unless you have proof otherwise, or it's really extremely obvious. And with this girl, it's not extremely obvious that she would be on something. She has the muscle size that she does. The same reason a man built like this would is that they were a bigger person who lost weight and lost fat. There's different types of people. You maybe have people in the middle, but it's hard to be super skinny and end up looking like this to add just by eating, just doing it naturally. It's very, very hard. But it's not that hard to be somebody who's bigger and slim down, and then they keep that general thickness or bigness that they have. And I'm just going by her legs, her hips, her waist. There's nothing that's screaming at me that she's using something. I'm not saying she couldn't or hasn't, but there's nothing that's screaming that out. And to use it in this case, if I was her, I would sue. She has nothing to do with this topic, and especially when she claims to be natural. Now, some people that claim to be natural, like Michael Hearn, I don't fucking believe him. I just don't. That's not a little good. That is testosterone physique. I can tell you I've maybe met 2 people in my life in all the years in the gym, and I'm old. 2 people that I can tell you that fooled me. That they're one of my friends from Cleveland. When him and I first met, he wasn't huge, but he was good sized, and he was more muscular than just being athletic, and he had a certain density to him, and he didn't use. Now, later on he used, and he was even bigger. He just had those genetics. And both of the people were both black friends of mine that just, they tend to just have higher natural testosterone levels. It's just the truth. People don't want to ever mention what the truth is. But it was definitely on the higher side naturally to be able to do that. And he put in the work as well. So when he continued to put the work in and then also added, some peds to it, then was a significant difference. But he was good enough natural that it made me think, you're natural? But I had no reason to doubt him. And I know today for a fact that he was. And I know what the difference was once he started to use too. But it's rare. It's rare. And so like for them to do this with her is not cool. And then it's not cool to talk about these supplements like this, like they're the real thing when they're not. What they should be warning people, because now this is going to make people, oh, you think this is going to make people not want it? No, it's going to make people, it's like, oh, I can get some benefits out of Anavar. I can get some benefits out of D-ball. And they see pictures of this shitty product and they're being lied to. There's no Anavar in this Anavar. Okay, that's what I'm telling you. That's just wrong. And I put the problem with that, not on Greg. I mean, he should have said something to him because he's in the video and he's the one talking about this stuff. But the iced coffee hour, and I did comment on there, this is not right to do this, to include them. If you want to talk about these particular over-the-counter supplements that you get at a supplement store, you should be talking about how they're such a fucking ripoff and that our government shouldn't allow the sale of this stuff with testosterone, or steroid-related names, and people think they're going to get steroid benefits when there is nothing about that is a fucking steroid. Nothing at all. So I'm going to keep pointing it out because I'm irritated by that shit. I don't like when people get ripped off. I just don't. So that's what I have that we're getting to. I had other stuff, but we're not getting to that. Not today. We did pretty good, though. I appreciate you. Much love. This is the Outlaw Apostle Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Neff. I'm the fucking guy.
Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believed me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces. That to me, you really playing with your life.